So here's a fun topic that's been posting up on my feed recently. Tipping. Tipping culture has been posting up. I've seen so many Instagram posts, YouTube videos, YouTube shorts about tipping culture, and it's actually like very controversial. And I think the fact that it's become controversial has probably been the biggest shocker so far. I always say this because when I was growing up, and usually like in my early 20s, it just seemed like that was such a different time than what we're living in today in like nearly every facet of life. Like anything pre 2020, like something shifted in 2020 where like everything just changed for what just kind of seems like the jankier. Like when I was in college, like 2017, 2016, I remember I was working at a restaurant, like an actual sit down restaurant, because my whole thing on tipping is like, I don't really tip when I go to Starbucks or if I go to like a drive-through or something like that. Usually when it's a sit-down restaurant, I tip. Or if like, let's say someone's like servicing my tires or filling up air, then I'll throw them a tip. Or if like they're working outside in the heat, then I'll throw them a tip. And also sometimes like if I went to Chipotle and the guys were really awesome and gave me like extra guac without charging me on it, yeah, I'll throw a tip in that tip jar. But back to the story about the restaurant job that I was working at. I was actually a busser, and the waiters and waitresses, like all the servers, used to tip us out. And they actually had to tip us bussers out more because we were moving all their dishes and all their plates and everything like that. Even they were supposed to take the bigger plates, but we were just supposed to take the small plates and the glasses and everything and keep all the tables neat, tidy. But we were fast at our job, and guess what happened? We got tipped out really well. And it was good because I actually saw that we kind of only made like $4 an hour, which the people who owned the restaurant at the time like accounted for that. We're going to have to get tipped. And, you know, people usually tip. Like very rarely do we get someone who just left 0% tip. And here's like the thing is if someone's a really good server, if someone's giving really good service, then definitely I'm going to leave a good tip. Usually, even though the standard tipping is like 14 or 15%, I usually sometimes ramped it up to like 25 or sometimes even 30% if the service was really good and they did a really good job and I was really pleased, because it does take a lot to put on that smiley face. It does take a lot to play that character that's going on there, because you know that there's a human side of them that they are suppressing before they absolutely walk out of that restaurant. Trust me, I know. Me and the servers would often party together after every shift on a Saturday night, and we had some stories to share about different customers, but we kept those smiles on our faces because, you know, one, we wanted to keep our jobs, and two, we wanted to get tipped really, really well. So the more abuse you took, it just kind of turned out that the better you got tipped at the time. But even then, like modern day today, like I will tip probably like 25, or sometimes there's actually this bar where I go to watch UFC fights and they serve me super well. So I'll ramp them up to 50, because even though it's not really like a whole lot to go to that place to eat out, only like $24 for like a club sandwich and like a Shirley Temple. So like I'll probably add like $10 to that check. So they'll get like a full 34 payout. So I'm nearly hitting them with 50%. But that's because I know those people. I constantly go back to that bar. And also that bar actually kept me from having to defend myself from a drunk idiot who was trying to start a fight with me. Like for real, the owner like does not take any instigations or any fights in that establishment. If someone's trying to start something, he'll tell them to step outside because he doesn't want that stuff popping off at all. Because it's usually, people don't realize like any sort of instigation of violence inside of a bar can lead down a really bad path super fast. There's a difference between like in the gym sparring and actually real life conflict where bottles are involved and stuff like that. And then you got all the legal stuff that you have to worry about afterwards. So they do a very good job of keeping their establishment really safe. So I always make sure that I tip the waiters and the waitresses there all the time because they've been there for years. They're awesome, and I just like love their service, so I will throw 50 their way. But on the other hand, there is a special type of tipper that I like, or there's a special type of person who expects tips that I really just see where someone doesn't want to tip anymore. Like one, if the service is absolutely atrocious or the person's being super rude, then yeah, no, I will not leave a tip. The only tip I will write is give better service and you'll get more money. I will actually did write that on a check one time where I crossed out the tip and I just wrote tip, give better service next time, because that person was absolutely rude. But also the thing is that tipping is a bit of a gratuity too. And I understand that a lot of these waiters and waitresses they're basically operating off like $4 or even $2 an hour, so they are going to need those tips to survive. But also what they fail to understand is that we are in some very economically tight times. So when people go out to eat, they probably don't have too much to spare, or they're going to tip what they can and can't tip very heavy, right? But there's some of those people, there's a certain type of person on Instagram that I will talk about, the people who think that if you don't tip 50% just for the bare minimum of service, then you shouldn't be going out to eat. And those people, in my opinion, are absolutely delusional, because let me break it down to you like this. If they are able to tip what they can despite being in an economically tight position, I think that's still going above and beyond for their part, because they also at the same time, they might not be in a position to tip at all, and they're still going above and beyond. But you always see those comments on those Instagram posts where people are talking about, where are they making us tip 25% from the bare minimum, which I have actually seen where that's expected. And I think a lot of people are realizing the older days of tipping. But you get the people who work in the service industry nowadays who seem a little entitled, who say, well, if you don't want to tip, then don't go out and eat. The funny thing I would say is, okay, then, at least from my perspective, I wouldn't go eat at that establishment, because I could probably find whatever's on that menu, and I could probably make a discount version of it in my own home where I won't have to tip. And I could probably make it about 5 times again and again before I will be spending the same amount of money at home than I will be at the restaurant for you guys making it. Because not every restaurant is high-end Gordon Ramsay style. You realize that a lot of these restaurants in the back, they're club sandwiches and everything like that. There's a very easy way on how to make those in your home, and sometimes maybe even make them more to your liking. Like, I actually bought a fry cutter for potatoes, and then I actually could deep fry them in some oil and make some homemade French fries if I wanted to, and probably they'd be a little bit better off. But also, if you tell a bunch of people, if you don't want to tip as much as I expect you to, and you want them to walk out the restaurant and never come back if they don't tip well enough, well, here's the thing, then the restaurant's not going to get as much business, and then you're going to have your hours cut because the restaurant's not making enough money, period. But I think overall, the times are changing because the workforce is kind of becoming a little more entitled, where, of course, they're showing up, they're doing their jobs, but they're doing their jobs where they're looking at their phones, or they're not taking into account that they have to give good service in order to get tipped out. And I think it's just the workforce changing generations, especially the college level job, where you like the jobs you get while you're going to school to get a degree or something like that. Those jobs typically take younger people who have yet to understand the fact that tipping really is a two-way street. And I think a lot of the balance gets thrown off because our culture is changing so rapidly too. Like back in the day before smartphones and cloud chasing and everything became such a thing, I remember that, point blank and center, black and white, I would always be thinking, hey, if you're not leaving a good tip for good service, or you're not leaving a tip, period, you're kind of that guy. But nowadays, with all the comments I'm seeing, reading back and forth and everything like that, what I see is that when someone doesn't leave a tip, I always ask the question, well, was the person's service good or not? But I think even then, the younger people still forget that a business needs to kind of make money in order for them to keep their employees and keep afloat. Otherwise, they will go out of business. So for you to tell your entire clientele, if you don't come and give me your money on my terms, or pay what I want you for what I have to offer you, then go somewhere else. Well, let's think of that in an area where you're not in the restaurant business. Let's say that you're just in anything else, like working on cars, or working on someone's home, or cleaning someone's gutters even. There's always going to be competitors who probably are going to do a better job for half the price that you're willing to do. And a business deal has to be a two-way street. Like, it has to serve both parties. If I were to clean someone's gutters and say, okay, $3,000, if you don't like that, then don't offer this service, they're going to say, okay, they're not going to take the service, and they're going to go with the guy that's charging $50 to clean the gutters. But at the bottom line, you do catch my drift. But what I do honestly say, at the end of the day, after spewing out all my two-sided thoughts on tipping culture and my history with tipping, I'm going to leave you all with this. If you have good waiters and waitresses who give you really good service, and I think there's more good apples than bad apples out there. I think also a lot of it is you kind of see the worst of the worst comments on Instagram and social media of people just trying to sound like the edgiest versions of themselves, where probably they might actually be leaving nasty comments online and giving good services in the restaurants that they actually work. If you have awesome waiters and waitresses, then yeah, tip them well. Tip them probably 12, 13, 14% like you should. You don't always have to tip 25 if you're actually really into the service that they're giving out. Then yeah, no, give them 25% or something like that, because I think we need to incentivize above and beyond behavior and above and beyond work, not just in the restaurants but in the workforce overall, and make sure that it's worth it for people to go above and beyond and have a strong workforce and have strong customer service and just have an overall strong society, because the more we incentivize good behavior, I think the better off we'll all be. And that's not just with tipping, but that's with life. But I've given my 2 cents or my 25% of the check of the tipping commentary on the internet. But you guys have yourself a very nice day. I hope you guys enjoyed this little ramble, and I will see y'all on the next one.